A warm welcome for Qatar's ruler in Saudi Arabia last month. But tensions were already brewing when he arrived in the kingdom to attend US President Donald Trump's state visit. Just 3 weeks later, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani is cut off and isolated. Qatar's neighbors accuse it of sponsoring Daesh and other terrorist groups. So the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt and Yemen have cut diplomatic ties with it, and they're slapping sanctions on the tiny oil and gas-rich state. Qatari nationals have been ordered to leave all Gulf states within 14 days. Etihad, Emirates, Fly Dubai and other regional carriers have cancelled all flights to the country, and they're closing airports, seaports and airspace to Qatar. The pariah status made investors dump Qatari stocks on Monday, taking the biggest toll on the market since the global financial crisis of 2009. But far away from its financial hub, Qatar's biggest problem lies out in the desert. Saudi Arabia has closed the Abu Samra border crossing, the only land route into Qatar. This is where 40% of its food and much of its raw material enters the country. As the world's richest country per capita, Qatar won't soon choke under these sanctions. But ostracized by its neighbors and cut off from the world, the country is nevertheless in a diplomatic chokehold it needs to get out of soon. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Well, we have Fabrizio Poli joining us now, the managing partner at Tyrus Wings, an aircraft trading company. We'll be talking about Qatar Airways with him. And Shabina Khatri, the executive editor and the co-founder of Doha News, who joins us from Detroit in Michigan. Shabina, if I could just start with you. This is a very interesting situation with the land border with Saudi Arabia being shut. Very important because 40% of Qatar's food supplies come in a lorry via Saudi Arabia. Is it true that some people in Qatar are now rushing to the supermarket to make sure they have enough food and drink?
Yes, actually, it's quite interesting because some supermarkets are seeing a very large increase in traffic, and some of them are not seeing really anything except a normal Ramadan rush. So there definitely is some panic buying going on, and it seems to be mostly by people who are following the news very closely. The government has made assurances to the people of Qatar saying that everything would continue as normal. And that might be true for the foreseeable week or something. But given that Qatar relies so heavily on food imports and supply imports, it's unclear how long things could remain normal. So it makes sense that amid the uncertainty, people are rushing to the store to stock up on essential items.
Shabina, for every Qatari, there are perhaps, say, 10 migrant workers or expats working in the country. They are quite sensitive to news like this. What do you think they're making of this?
Of the Qataris or the expats?
The expat workers.
So the expats are worried. I mean, they're not a homogenous group. There's people from all over the world in Qatar. But I know the Western expats in particular are concerned about, how landlocked is Qatar? How stuck are people given, I know you're going to talk about later, the air access to the country and the land access to the country. What does this mean for the future of Qatar? What does this mean for the people living there?
The fact is, Shabina, Qatar is a very, very small country, and people, one of the only benefits of living there is that they get to leave quite frequently. They get to go to places like the United Arab Emirates or and other neighbouring countries. Let's go to Fabrizio Poli for a moment. What is it going to do to the tourists or the people who would be tourists in Qatar, and also to the Qatar Airways itself, to find all its neighbours are closing its airspace?
Well, Qatar Airways have most of their traffic is basically a lot of people traveling from Europe over to Australia, for example, and they jump on Qatar Airways because it offers a great service, very good pricing and that, and they stop off in Doha for a few hours, and then people get accustomed to Doha. It's a bit, they kind of built themselves as an alternative to Dubai, so it's quite an important part of the Middle East. The fact that now Qatar Airways are going to have all these bans and that, this is going to hit their market because their traffic, as far as passengers is concerned, is going to go down, which is going to benefit Emirates and Etihad.
Yeah, let me ask you about the airspace. Now, we have a map of Qatar and the surrounding area. Will it significantly increase the travel time and distance by having Saudi and other airspaces closed, or not really?
Well, it depends where you're coming from. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're coming from the north, the west, or the south, I mean, it will probably maybe increase the flight by 15, 20 minutes, but it's not so much that. I mean, now, for example, you've got people in the UK that have to travel maybe to Australia and thinking, well, should I travel Qatar Airways? Because I hear those guys are actually financing the terrorists. Maybe I don't want to give them my money, so I'll fly with Etihad or Emirates instead. There's that kind of thinking in the minds of the passengers as well. And the people that are actually going to be paying for tickets.
Right, so it's a question of psychology and reputation, really, and associating things. Shabina, if I could just come back to you for a moment. We heard that the stock market in Qatar really took a dive. Why do you think that is?
Well, like I said, there is a lot of uncertainty right now about the future. And like all stock markets around the world, they operate on consumer confidence. And right now, people are not confident about the future in Qatar. As you talked about, this is going to have a devastating impact on tourism. The majority of Qatar's tourism comes from the Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia. Eid is coming up. You know, there's a lot of things that are at stake here.
Shabina, just really quickly, I need to ask you about this accusation from the Saudis and others that Qatar is backing the Muslim Brotherhood, which they consider a terrorist group. Is that an open secret in Qatar? So
Qatar officially says that it doesn't back the Muslim Brotherhood. And this stems back from like 2014, when the Gulf ambassadors pulled out of Qatar, the Saudi, Bahrain, and UAE ones. And this was because they were upset about Qatar's support of Mohammed Morsi in Egypt, who was a Muslim Brotherhood candidate who was an elected president at the time and then overthrown. So Qatar was saying it was simply supporting a democratically elected president.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't think this is the case.
Shabina Khatri, thank you so much for your analysis there. And Fabrizio, if I could ask you to hold on for a little bit, we're going to come back to you on another aviation-related story soon.